remember Giselle Gigi Delorme. She was a student at Lakeshore, 9 years old, who passed away last week. And Dave Neiman, he was a longtime coach and teacher at Olympia. In the 90s to 2000, he tragically died in an ATV accident over the weekend. So if you keep the Delorme and Neiman families in your thoughts and prayers, that would be greatly appreciated.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have somebody move the agenda table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, seconded by Ms. Farmer. Any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda? That passes 8-0. Moving on to our union comments. GTA, President Eberts, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Greetings, everybody. As always, I'd like to start by thanking our Board of Ed, superintendent staff, and all of our staff members committed to making our community stronger through our school district. The work we partake in on behalf of our students, families, and Greater Greece community is some of the most important work to be done. I usually take my address to staff on opening day and kind of pare it down for you all here, as I believe some of the themes are really important. So I apologize if you've heard it already this morning, but it's much shorter. As a lifelong resident of this community and the president of the Greece Teachers Association, I'm honored to speak to you today. Our union, the 24th largest in NYSET, is more than just a group of educators. We are a united force committed to excellence in our schools and community. We've achieved much together, navigating challenges and ensuring the well-being of our students while expanding opportunities to families. Our impact reaches beyond the classroom, extending to the heart of our community through initiatives like scholarships and community support efforts. Should have brought my glasses. I apologize.
Do you want mine?
That's okay. I'm going to struggle through. Moving forward, collaboration will be key. We're revitalizing committee work and expanding shared decision-making to empower educators and create the best learning environments for our students. In these challenging times, unity is more important than ever. As Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. Let's harness our collective strength to make this school year extraordinary. So thank you for your dedication, and I look forward to working with you all to make Greece the best it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I don't believe I have anybody sign up from GASA, Accept, Gus, and Teamsters. All right, 1.06, Residents Forum. I have nobody sign up for Residents Forum. 2.01, election of a vice president. I will open the floor at this time for nominations for the office of vice president. Board Member Millar.
I nominate Bill Maloney.
All right, Bill Maloney. Is there a second on Bill Maloney? Mr. Butler seconds that. Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president?
I'd like to nominate Tracy Farmer.
Is there a second on that? Mr. Bonagorio. Are there any other nominations for vice president? I'd like to nominate Terry Malloy. Is there a second on that? Mr. Butler. Are there any other nominations? Those were the only three that submitted letters. So at this point, we will do a vote. You can only vote once. So we'll start with Bill Maloney. Is anybody voting for Bill Maloney? All right. Tracy Farmer. Tracy has 5 votes, so she's secured the vice presidency. And Ms. Millar, are you okay if we don't vote?
Sure.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, Tracy Farmer is elected vice president. Tracy, if you can do your oath of office with Debbie. You want my microphone? All right.
Tracy, can you please stand for your oath of office? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of office of Vice President
the duties of office of Vice President
for the Greece Central School District
for the Greece Central School District
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Tracy.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, moving on to staffing. Can I so move the staffing to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stenzel, seconded by Mr. Butler. Is there any comments, questions, concerns on staffing? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to tenure. Can I so move the tenure to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Moore, seconded by Mr. Stenzel. Any comments, questions, concerns on tenure? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. 4.03, GTA additional FTEs. Can I so move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Farah, seconded by Mr. Bonagorio. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to the Teamster MOA driver pay. Can I so move that to the table, please? Moved by Vice President Farmer, seconded by Mr. Bonagorio. Are there any comments, questions, concerns on this? That's you, Ms. Larson.
All right, thank you very much. I have a message from Karen Costera, proud business agent for our Teamsters. I'm sorry that I couldn't be here this evening to extend my appreciation and gratitude for all of the efforts that were made to put this MOA in place. Thank you to Dave Richardson for facilitating the focus groups and gathering information, as well as the HR team, Gina, Jen, Julie, Katie, and Shannon, for their support and working through all of the questions. And to the finance team, Janine, Megan, Jackie, and Romeo for sharpening his pencil and eagerness to find a way. To board officers and the entire board, thank you all for understanding the need to retain and recruit bus drivers in a profession that is faced with many challenges. While we have more work to do, I am hopeful that this is just the beginning of great things to come in a great district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to the GASA MOA union dues. Can I so move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Butler, seconded by Mr. Stenzel. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 6.01, transportation update. Superintendent Groutman.
Yes, I'm going to invite Dave to come on up. We have presentations tonight just named transportation updates. One thing that I just want to point out before Dave gets started is transportation is one of our absolutely most crucial departments, not only because it's really how we get our kids to and from school at the most base level, but all of the folks in transportation are the first faces that our kids see every day and the last faces they see before they get off the bus. So we take our work in terms of working with the transportation department so seriously and recognize, for those of you who may not know, we have been in a crisis for some time now in terms of drivers, and it's impacted everybody in this department. So what sounds like a driver issue turns into an entire department issue in terms of that impact. As we've made changes, we've done so with the idea of sort of short and long term, and with every change that we make, there's impact. So what Dave is going to share with us is sort of the current state of transportation, along with reminding us about some of the adjustments and changes that we've made and sort of where we are with things at this moment. So thank you for your work. And thanks to the people who are here. It's nice to just have the department so well represented, and we're happy to support you.
So we'll start with that. Good evening, Board of Education. Proud to be here. I brought many members of our team here that I'd like to introduce because these are the people behind the work. So I want to start with dispatcher Sue Goethals. So when I call your name, just stand. Sue's been working in Greece longer than I've been alive. All right, I think she might be going on her 50th year. Close? Well, 47 years in transportation. So Sue. So our dispatchers are the ones supporting our drivers out on the road, road patrol when there's an accident. They're handling the referrals, pulling bus video. Our buses are out on the roads for 12 hours each day, not including sports and field trips. So Sue, thank you. Our routers, Roger, Peggy, Holly, and Val, if you'd stand up. These are the folks that are putting out 9,000 plus bus passes to 98 schools each for the upcoming school year. So when you're talking about 29 out-of-district special ed programs, you think of Holly. When you're talking about bus stop review requests, you're thinking of Val. When you're thinking of private parochial charter school and daycare applications, you're thinking of Peggy. And when you're thinking of the mastermind behind it all, Roger. So thank you. Our trainers, Todd, Cindy, Scott, and Deb couldn't be here tonight. These are the folks that are training our drivers in attendance, following the laws and regs, making sure everyone's in compliance. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into training staff, and these are the people behind it. So thank you. Our garage team, I'll start to my right, Mark, Phil, Ron, Tony, Mary Jo, Bill, Joe Santiago, Mike Daphne, Jimmy, Hillen, and Les, I know you're here. Who else am I missing? I know there's some others that are not here, but we have 15 members of our garage team that are working diligently every day from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. to make sure the buses are safe and appropriate for our buses. So thank you to the garage team. Our office team, we have Tammy in payroll, Judy, my administrative assistant, I know I saw you, Sonia, Lisa Foote, Lisa Foote handles all of our field trips, Jeff Grace, where are you, Jeff? Handles all of our sports, and Jennifer Jones, who assists on the phones as well as with payroll. These are the administrative assistants and supports that are answering the phones, assisting schools with trips and sports, and whatever supports we can provide. So kudos to all that. Our admin team, Michelle Sears, bus operations supervisor for the drivers, Craig Heston, who I don't think could be here, and Mary Beth Rayola, the assistant director. They are the lifeline for me, administrative support, really round off the administrative team to make sure we're supporting our students and staff each day. So thank you. We have 123 drivers currently. 120 of those are active. We have 126 attendants. We have 16 sub-drivers, which we hope to convert to regular drivers with the recent MOA, so thank you, Board of Ed, and 32 sub-attendants. So when you add that up, you're talking about the largest department in the district with 335 staff members. So it's a pretty monumental task each day. But we're here to support our students, our community, and our schools, and it's a lot of joy. As Kathy said, our kids see our transportation staff first and last each day. We take a lot of pride in our work, and it's a monumental task for what we have to do in this short amount of time. But it's a team effort, and we couldn't do it without your support from the Board of Ed, as well as the principals in the schools. So thank you. Thank you, team, for being here. Going into our current state, you heard me say 9,000 students transported. That's about 8,100 GRE students and about 900 private parochial charter school students. You heard me say 120 active GRE Central drivers. What I mean by active is they're driving tomorrow. Okay, someone out on an LOA who's back this fall and stuff is still on our list, but they're not working tomorrow. But there you see a little bit of doom and gloom. We're down 16 from last year, and we're going to go into that in a little bit. 69 contracted bus routes with Ontario. That's up 9 from last year. It should be up a lot higher if we follow the same parameters, but thanks to all of your work, on June 4th, we were able to be more efficient and effective with our routing, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. 1,000 walkers in grades 6 through 12, and as I mentioned earlier, transporting to 98 schools and programs twice a day. That does not include work study, transition, midday programs, tutoring, things of that nature that we are still doing, and we call those midday runs. So our current state, you're looking at 191 bus runs when you add in Greece plus Ontario, okay? So you got the 122 for Greece, 69 with Ontario, and the 98 schools and programs. Notice that the smallest number of programs is Greece, but that's the largest number of kids. 18 Greece, 51 private parochial charter, and 29 out-of-district special ed. When you look at childcare and private parochial charter school applications, that's what PPC stands for, private parochial charter school. Through last Friday, the 23rd, we've received 518 childcare applications. Childcare is eligible for any student kindergarten through grade 8. Okay, so you can see that is down a little bit from last year, which we had 744, and the year before that, 840. One of the things that we were concerned about coming into this school year is the April 1st state deadline. We have received 88 late applications through August 23rd. We've received quite a few since then, but 88 late apps this year, with 214 late apps last year and 321 the year before. So if you can see some context there, the number of applications is kind of declining over the last 3 years, as well as, in a good way, the number of late apps. Okay, and then obviously you're looking at 843 private parochial charter school applications, which is down from just under 1,200 from last year and 765 the year before that, with 141 late apps to date through August 23rd, with 344 last year. So something that we track very carefully. Anyone who has submitted on time or late a private parochial charter school application or a daycare application gets a mailing, a robocall, email from us in January and February to remind them to do so again by April 1st for the following school year. Okay? So you heard me say active, 120 Greece Central drivers right now. Since last July, so you're talking 14 months, we've hired 32. And I've said this before at our Board of Ed retreats as well as previous board meetings. If you would have told me, Dave, and over the next 14 months you're going to hire 32 drivers, I would say, where do I sign? I'll take it. But look, the next number, lost 48. Okay, there's your minus 16 difference, which I shared on an earlier slide. So where are they going? You see the little blue box there. We lost 12 to retirement. Other means 15, like another career field. Okay, that's what that means. We lose a few people to other CDL fields like the airport, garbage companies, Pepsi, things like that. Discipline for 4, we promoted 3, 4 people were on LOAs, 3 people to another district, that was relatively recent. 2 people went to become an attendant and 5 went to become a sub. So that, if you add up those numbers, it's going to give you 48. Okay? We are utilizing Transpo, which is a contracted services company for drivers to come here. They report to us. They show up to dispatch, and we give them an assignment that day driving our buses. Okay, so that's for a total of 5. What we are doing now is determining sub availability. Subs have to give us their availability for the month by the 1st of each month. So we're determining who's available each day for those who call in sick or not able to make it to work. This slide is a repeat slide from June 4th. So what the Board of Education approved on June 4th, that middle column is walking distances to the bus stop and increase. Okay? So if you remember, it used to be all K-5 students got a bus regardless of where you lived, okay? Now, we're asking K-5 students to walk up to 2/10 of a mile, not only to school, but also to the bus stop. And that's right from the state education guidelines, okay? So that has led to 8 students walking to school, K-5. That means where they live, they can see the school. Like within 4 to 5 driveways, okay? No change for the middle school or the high school walking distance. But what that has led to is an increased walking distance to the bus stop. So in the past, K-5 students had to walk up to 800 feet to the bus stop. On June 4th, the board, with the recommendations from myself and cabinet, that it increased to 1,056 feet. Okay, 2/10 of a mile. So now the walking distance to school matches the walking distance to the bus stop. Okay? Now 6-8, while there's no change in the walking distance to school, there was a change in the walking distance of the bus stop to match the walking distance to school. So it used to be up to 1,500 feet to the bus stop, now it's up to a mile. In high school, up to 1.5 miles. Where the equity piece came into play is, if we're telling students you can walk up to 1.5 miles to school, but you live 1.6 miles away and you only have to walk up to 1,500 feet to the bus stop, where's the equity? Okay, so this evened out. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of your slide, back on June 4th, Roger and his team estimated the routes saved would be 24, which would equate, 16, which would equate to 7 runs. It's actually 24 routes saved with 10 runs saved. Big difference. This slide is also a duplicate from June 4th, combining more private, parochial, and charter school bus routes. In the previous model, every private, parochial, charter school received its own bus. The bell times prevented us from getting to schools right on time, but through the third-party company on the bus that came in and did a feasibility study of the department, we realized we can certainly partner and combine schools on the same bus within reason. So students might be getting to school A now 20 minutes before the bell time, and then school B 10 minutes before the bell time, because the schools are within a half mile of each other, okay? If we had to stay, every private parochial charter school gets its own bus, that number 69 that I told you earlier would probably be, well, 69 plus 23, you're looking at 92. And that number in the upper right-hand corner is how many runs we saved by combining schools, okay? So we have been getting calls about this. Why is my child on a bus with another school? Why is my child on the bus for 45 minutes? Why can't my child have its own bus for its own school? Well, the driver shortage, in essence, is the real reason. But the financial burden's another. I mean, we're paying $486, $500 a run per day, whether it's 4 kids on that bus or 40. So we also have a duty and a responsibility to our taxpayers to be fiscally responsible. 2 main challenges continue. Again, this is a slide you saw back on June 4th. The driver shortage, AKA the number of drivers, continues to decline, yet the volume of schools and programs and needs continues to rise. So our continued efforts, we had a recruitment fair here on August 8th. I want to thank Mary Beth for spearheading that. We had 16 people come in and inquire and apply. 16 doesn't sound like a lot, but I'll take it. Anything we can do to get people walking through the door is a W for our department. We surveyed Teamsters to solicit input. We proposed an MOA, which you approved here tonight, so thank you for that. We continue to give opportunities for subs and attendants and other staff to work for us. To partner up, we have a buildings and grounds gentleman who gets done at 2:30 and he comes over and he drives for us. So there's a number of opportunities that we are always trying to provide our staff. The training team, as I said before, does an amazing job going above and beyond to support any candidate that comes in, regardless of their background, their experience, whether they have none or they have a little. We will work with that person. Some people need 12, 13, 14 weeks to get their CDL. Others may get it as soon as 6 or 7. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and our trainers are very flexible in supporting candidates who come in our doors. As I said, no experience necessary. So what we need from you, this is a difficult time of year for my team, as well as for all of you, because what we want is a perfect tomorrow. We want a perfect opening. Unfortunately, we are still getting people registering today and last week, and it can be very challenging, not only on school teams to build a schedule for students, but very challenging for our department to process new bus passes in a very short window. So we have people that are reaching out to you asking for an exception. Yes, I know I didn't get my application until August 28th, but can I still get a house stop for Holy Cross? And I know all of you know the challenges behind that. Many families are going through tough times and hardships, but what's difficult is if we break the rule for one and we make an exception for one, we have to do it for all. And that can become very taxing on my team, on my routers, on my dispatchers, on the schools. And we start adding all of these house stops and all of these exceptions, kids are not going to get to school on time. I know that's kind of harsh to hear, but that's the reality. When you're trying to bus 8,100 Greece students each and every day, plus another 900 private parochial charter school students. So those daycare applications, those private parochial charter school applications, the policy we've been following and have always been followed, which is aligned with state education, is we offer people the closest existing stop. For some, they get lucky and it's the next door neighbor. For others, they may have to walk a little bit. And that's a challenge, and I get that. Now, if they're a new registrant, they have 30 days to get their application in. That's also a state law. So it's not, you're not out of luck if you registered today as a new registrant to Greece. But if you have been in Greece, you need to get it in by April 1st. Walking distances, we've gotten a few phone calls with that. I don't want my child walking more than a quarter mile. In middle school, as I shared earlier, it's up to 1 mile. We have very few students in middle school walking up to a mile. We have very few high school students walking up to 1.5 miles. Chances are there's a stop much closer, maybe a student with disabilities that has a house stop, so now we can utilize that stop for others, okay? But that is the rule. That is the policy that we adopted on June 4th, and it's important that we stick to that. Ride times. We get calls about my child's on the bus 45, 50, 60 minutes. That's true for Greece as well. It's not just private parochial charter schools that have a longer bus ride, but it's also Greece students. And that's not uncommon. We try to keep our students on the bus no more than 40, 45 minutes, but that's not always the case, especially for McKinney-Veno when we have to go outside of Greece. You know, if we have to go to Newark to drop off a student, that bus ride is not going to be 45 minutes. Okay? So it's not that we wake up saying, how can I make so-and-so's life difficult today? Let's put them on the bus for 60 minutes. We are routing with efficiency each and every day. New registrants, we're looking at anywhere between 3 to 5 days. Up to today, it was 48 hours, you were getting a bus. Special ed, depending on where you live, maybe it's going to be less. Okay, our special ed students need to be in school, like all students need to be in school, but they also have an IEP that dictates their program. So our special ed students and the amazing work of Holly, we're trying to get them routed in 24 hours. Phone calls and emails, we have a phone bank that started on the 26th. They do an amazing job. We were trying to return those calls in 24 hours. Obviously, volume has a play. Okay, so we get a ton of phone calls. It may be a little bit longer. But last week, we were returning phone calls in 24, maybe 36 hours. Route times may be adjusted. We are utilizing a computer system. Every once in a while, it says you can get from Athena to Buckman Heights in 4 minutes. Ain't happening. Right? So we are constantly adjusting routes to meet the true times. Our drivers are giving feedback to our routing team to say, hey, I need to build in some time here. So it's not uncommon for students to get a revised bus pass with a different time on it because we needed to be a little bit more flexible with those times on that route. Bus stop review requests, we get a lot of these. I don't like my child's bus stop. I get applications that just say that. And then we get others that mention safety factors. Maybe there's no sidewalk. We review every single bus pass individually, and we take that seriously. However, that is not a priority for my team right now. Students who, parents may not like their child's bus stop, but they have a bus. Our priority right now is students who don't have a bus. Okay, so I understand parents may not like their current bus stop. We ask for their patience and to complete a bus stop review request, which we are happy to do. That form is on the transportation webpage, and we will get back to you, but that's not of high priority right now, unless there's something of imminent danger that is threatening students. Looking ahead, a couple of key dates. Secondary late runs will be with Ontario this year. Ontario bus will be transporting Greece students from our 18 or our 6 secondary schools starting on Monday. Why is that? Because of the challenge of high school or secondary late runs occurring at the same time as elementary late runs. All right, so you may have heard last year secondary late runs were canceled again. Yeah, because if I have to choose, I'm going to get elementary students home. Okay, so, but that also is a burden to our teams at the secondary schools who are keeping kids after school for review and for support and extra curricular opportunities. They deserve transportation, and rightfully so. But this was a way to guarantee that 5 days a week. Okay. Elementary late runs at the end of the month. We do remove students who have not ridden, so just like Kathy Colicchio's office with registration, they're trying to process new registrants. The students who are not here is a priority, but we want to make sure the students walking through the door tomorrow are the top priority. Okay, so we will be removing students who are not riders. We do that every year. Nice little feel-good moment I'd like to invite you to on October 3rd is the memorial wall and time capsule dedication. If you've seen the memorial wall outside here by the flagpole, we salvaged some of the mementos in the old school and created a wall in memory of the old school that once stood at the corner, and we're going to do a community dedication for that at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 3rd, which everyone's invited to. And then everyone's favorite topic, the zero emissions and electric bus study. So we're expecting that study to be completed towards the end of September. And once that study is turned over to Romeo and myself, we will be turnkeying those results to you later on this fall. Questions for me?
Mr. Butler?
Well, thanks, Dave, for your presentation, and thanks to all of the great folks in the Transportation Department who make this district go literally and figuratively. Really appreciate all the work you're doing to get us to a successful opening day tomorrow. I just had one quick question. On slide 5, you talked about the number of childcare and PPC applications being down so significantly. I wonder if you have any speculation as to why that might be.
It's a good question. I do think it's harder. For one, I think childcare is very costly. I have had parents tell me that. So they are trying to use maybe a neighbor, a student in the neighborhood, a babysitter, versus going to a licensed daycare, which can be very costly. The private parochial charter numbers, I think last year that number may have also included duplicates. We went into the Google Forms process, which has been very helpful because it timestamps every application. However, we are tracking that application by application. I also think that the April 1st deadline has helped us. So you may have remembered before the deadline was July 1st. We gave families an extra 3 months, but it really was taxing on our team to try to route all those kids in 2 months' time. So when people might have filled out applications and it wasn't complete, that may have counted as an application as well. But some of the schools are seeing declining enrollment. It doesn't matter if one student's going there or 6 or 20. One means we have to provide transportation. Yep. Yep.
Ms. Lake?
When I taught, I always had tremendous respect for bus drivers. I couldn't imagine teaching a class with my back to them, and they were driving a vehicle. So, you know, when you're running for school board, you hear a lot of stories, and it's not hard evidence, but I think the behaviors that teachers are dealing with in the schools and we're hearing about and doing plans, they're certainly on the buses too. And I think those bus drivers deserve respect and the attendance. And I think I never knew anyone who left teaching because of the money. It was the conditions. And I think there might be a bigger pool out there of these retired guys who just need a little something to do and they don't have a particularly big schedule, or their wives want them out of the house a couple times a day. So you might get more, I think, if you could work with the schools to have more consequences. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the challenges that our drivers do face is the schools can offer more supports for students because they have space, they have hallways, they may have access to adults and take the student for a walk, or there's things in a child's BIP or that can be implemented in the schools, whereas you're in a confined amount of space on the school bus going 35 miles an hour down the road. So, those supports that are offered to students during the school day may not be replicated on the school bus and can be challenging for our bus attendants and our bus drivers. So I appreciate you saying that. And, get the word out there, especially with the agreement that was agreed upon here earlier tonight. We welcome anybody coming in, and we're happy to answer any questions that future candidates may have.
Parents got a call that they needed to pick their kid up right away, or if they acted the way they did today, again, they would have to provide their own transportation. It's tough love. It works for kids and it works for parents too sometimes.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Bonagoro?
Dave, thank you very much. Appreciate the update there. I know, again, two questions. I know last year with all of the challenges, we had a lot of late situations. Do you feel pretty comfortable that our current status is going to avoid most of that, or is that still going to be a challenge?
I would say, obviously I don't have a crystal ball. We're going into this year better than we did last year. But I can't tell you what the next 4 to 8 weeks or heading into the winter is going to look like. We've seen a little bit of an increase in COVID over the last month or two. And, you know, sicknesses, health, ability, you know, we have an aging workforce. You know, if we have 10 people who decide to retire Thanksgiving weekend, and that's not uncommon to see a higher number of retirees in the holiday time, we could go from good to bad real quick. You know, so we're hoping that this MOA is going to lead to better recruitment efforts to enhance that. And if we can get more people through the door and expand our workforce, that's only going to help us ensure that we don't have delays.
I would add one thing. I just want to add the thing in terms of the recruitment, because I think what we did tonight was really significant. I also just want to point out, and I say this with great respect, we have a lot of women, a lot of retired women, a lot of women who also would make great bus drivers. And I think that's important because even through our own individual recruitment efforts, the more that we spread the word, tap people, offer, share this with them, I think we would find more balance in who we see walking through the door. So I just think
Absolutely.
it's really important for us to consider and think about that more broadly.
Absolutely. I agree.
Vice President Farmer?
Yes, thank you to everybody out there. Fantastic. My question is kind of a follow-up on what Mark just asked, and we know what bus runs can be like initially. Are robocalls going out? Are parents aware that the schedule might be off, so people aren't, concerned? Where's my kid? Those kinds of
Right.
things. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so we use a 20-minute rule. I won't say it's a rule, but it's a general guideline. If students are going to be delayed over 20 minutes, a robocall goes out. We work closely with Laurel, with the school to determine who's going to send that robocall out. 90% of the time it comes out of my office or my department. But yeah, communication is essential. We know that tomorrow could be rough for buses, right? So if a school ends up dismissing their buses late because it took a lot of time to get the students on the buses in the afternoon, then the school will do a robocall to all the students, letting them know they're going to be late. Anything under 20 minutes, no. If it's over 20 minutes, yes. Yeah, and that's a daily occurrence. Yep.
Mr. Montagora?
So kind of a follow-up on Mary's question. We know what a challenging job it can be for the bus drivers, and thank you to all the bus drivers out there. I know at least some of our buses have attendants along with the bus drivers. Do all buses have attendants? What are the rules
All
on that?
buses do not have an attendant. That would be a goal, to have that, to support the driver with any needs that the students may have. But I would say 75% of our buses have an attendant on them.
And do we have an active effort to recruit there as well?
Yeah, so we're always recruiting attendants. We have an attendant shortage just as much of a driver shortage, and attendants are just as vital to our operation as the drivers. We know that if we don't have drivers, kids don't get to school. But to ensure the safety and well-being of our students, attendants play a critical role in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know that
Yeah,
we're still working.
there is, I will say and Romeo can speak to this too, there is a difference in different kinds of attendance. So in our eyes, we have mandated attendance or mandated monitors where a student has on their IEP a one-to-one or access to an attendant, kind of like an access to a teaching assistant in the classroom, all right? And then we have 61 approved behavior attendants. Now, behavior may seem like we're putting them on a bus where there's behavior, but they are not tied to a mandated service. So they're not aided positions. They're funded a little bit differently because they're not required positions under the transportation umbrella. Those are people that we would like to have on a bus supporting the students for a variety of needs. It may be a volume issue. It may be a McKinney a bus that's going way out. It may be, you know, a bunch of things that factor into that. But yes, we have 61 behavior attendant positions approved for our department, and all of them are not filled.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Anything else? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 6.02, the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan and School Comprehensive Education Plan. Superintendent Groutman.
Yes, I'm going to invite Christine Baker, Dr. Baker, and Mr. Mark Fleming to come on up and give us an update. We have gotten a bunch of this information. Some of this information was just recently shared at our retreat, but this gets into a little bit more detail, particularly with the SCEP plan. So I'll turn it over to you to share. Thank you to the transportation folks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy opening week. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you tonight. Dr. Baker and I are going to talk a little bit about ESSA, our accountability designations, and the systems and processes that we are using here in Greece to address those designations. So let's talk a little bit about ESSA. I'm sure it's an acronym that you have heard before. It stands for the Every Student Succeeds Act. This is legislation that was passed in 2015 to update the No Child Left Behind Act. It's basically a law that says that states must have an accountability system for their schools. New York State designates schools that are in the bottom 10% in multiple areas and for multiple subgroups. So what exactly is New York State measuring? You can see the slide in front of you there. There are 7 different areas that New York State is measuring. The first 3 deal with achievement. The New York State is also looking at graduation rates, English language proficiency, chronic absenteeism, and college and career and civic readiness. They, of course, are looking in all of these areas at all of our students, and they're also looking at a variety of subgroups. So all students is actually an official subgroup for New York State. They're also looking at subgroups based on race and ethnicity, and New York State is also measuring performance for our English language learners, our students with disabilities, and those that are economically disadvantaged. The lowest 10% of schools that have the lowest 10% for subgroups in any of those areas that I mentioned earlier are schools that are then identified as schools that are in need of improvement. And there are several different designations that New York State makes when they are designating schools in need of improvement. LSI, TSI, ATSI, and CSI. We love our acronyms in New York. So let me go, there's more to come, trust me. Let me go through a few of these. So if you are a school in good standing, you are LSI, okay? So the vast majority of schools in New York State are LSI. That means they're not in the bottom 10% for any of those measures of success or for any of those subgroups. Basically what New York State is saying, just like all of us, we agree that schools are always trying to improve. So schools are getting local support and improvement. There's no interference from Albany. Of course, you can probably quibble over that notion of interference. If you are in that low 10% in year 1, you are designated as a TSI school. That's a school that's in need of targeted support and improvement. What this essentially means is that New York State's going to offer some financial assistance and also some support for schools in helping to lift up a school that has a subgroup or multiple subgroups that are in need of improvement, again, in any of those 7 areas that I mentioned before. New York State is not swooping in. They're not sending officials here. It's really local control over that school improvement process. If after year 1 you have not exceeded that 10% threshold, you are then classified as an ATSI school. That's additional targeted support and improvement. New York kind of ups the financial commitment. They offer a little bit more support from Albany, but still it's local control and local support for that school that's in need of improvement. If after 3 years that same subgroup or subgroups are still not performing in that specific area, again, those 7 measures of success that I mentioned earlier, then a school is designated as CSI, that's Comprehensive Support and Improvement. That is actually really intensive support, so New York State's actually going to send officials to come into the school. You're going to lose a little bit of local control over that improvement process. Currently, there are no Greece schools that are designated as CSI. We do have one school, Olympia, that is ATSI, and we have 2 schools that are TSI, Lakeshore and Pine Brook. The rest of our 14 school sites are all LSI. They're all in good standing with New York State. So Olympia, Lakeshore, and Pine Brook are designated schools, and right now they are designated for our Black student subgroup for those 3 achievement areas that I mentioned earlier: student academic achievement, student growth, and academic progress. As a result, New York State mandates that each one of these schools has to complete a SCEP, which is a School Comprehensive Education Plan. There's another acronym for you. Essentially, this is a school improvement plan, and it's a very specific state template that Albany gives us. It really kind of mimics the school improvement template that we use here in Greece Central. That template is developed and reviewed and filled in by the school improvement team. So again, it's local control over that school improvement process. The school team is working together, all of those stakeholders, to put in the strategies and commitments that they're going to utilize in order to improve. There's very specific categories within that document. So you have to employ an evidence-based intervention for the improvement target that you have. You have to specify the specific goals and commitments that you're making to your school community. You have to list out the key strategies and the implementation outline for that improvement process. You also have to designate the resources you're going to need, list the progress targets that you're going to be monitoring throughout the year. And New York State also requires that we use perception surveys to really get feedback from all of our stakeholders to inform that improvement process. In addition, all schools that have at least one cited school have to complete a DSIP, and Dr. Baker is going to take us through that process.
All right, so as Mark said, because we have at least one, we are required to have a district comprehensive improvement plan, and we mirror the same process that schools are going through in order to develop this. So we've established a district improvement team that is working to set our priorities, and our document specifies the same thing, the priorities, the strategies, methods, and resources, and the measures of success that mean that we met the outcome that we're hoping to improve upon. It is a state template in the same way that the SCEP template is from the state, so we don't choose the template, but other than that, we do get to choose sort of what lives in the plan in terms of the goals and the action steps that live within that. So what we've chosen is alignment from at the very top. You'll see achievement, PLCs, behavior and discipline are our main 3 priorities that we outlined within the DSIP. And then each of the schools, whether you're a local school improvement, right, just the regular school improvement plans, or whether you're a designated school, schools all have goals within those same key priorities, which will help us support in very strategic ways from district office and within each school. Our first priority in the DSIP is around achievement, and we designated that by June of 2025, every K through 8 schools, so when we listed them out specifically, will have an increase of 4% in proficiency for math and ELA as designated by iReady. So we know that iReady is something that we give at least 3 times a year, and that will help us be on track because we don't want to wait till the state assessments because that's too late to know if we're on track or not. So it's not perfectly aligned, but it certainly is aligned enough to see if we're progressing towards those outcomes. And we're looking at these schools for each of the 3 subgroups, all students, Black students, and special education students, because we know that we want to be measuring the subgroups that we're at risk with, but also seeing how we're all progressing because we know we have room to grow for all of our students, not just the subgroups that are designated. The key strategies that we'll be working on are coaching, and specifically the science of reading with our core, coaching from our district math coaches, and also our reading interventionists. There's math concept development that they'll be working on. We have specific data dives throughout the year that centrally we come together, we look at data and unpack standards to really find out where students are falling short. So we look at that not only horizontally but vertically, and we've been trying to do more of that unpacking with teachers at the table, not just administrators. We are building our leadership capacity, so making sure that during our leadership meeting that we do monthly, that we're rotating through a focus on this so that we're really building the capacity of our leaders, and that we also have specific cycles where district office and building leadership are sitting together to problem solve barriers around what resources they may need in order to meet their goals. And we also outlined our building and district attendance teams because we know that if students are in school, they're not going to be able to achieve. And so even if students are absent, they're still counted towards our designations for students who aren't meeting the growth. So our second priority is our PLC, or professional learning community. We called out that by June of 2025, the Greece Central School District will go from 0 school sites with a PLC guiding coalition to ensuring that all 18 have highly effective guiding coalition teams that are in place in order to empower and sustain our professional learning communities. So those are the teams of teachers that are sitting and looking at standards for their grade level within their school and really assessing how students are doing and if they're meeting the objectives. And so we're starting with a guiding coalition that's going to increase their capacity in order to help each of the building-based PLC teams improve and grow. So we had a huge focus on this for our Summer Leadership Academy this past summer. We have a district guiding coalition that will also be working and learning and growing together to support each of the building teams. And then we will also have a 4-day release where we'll be doing some more professional development with each building's guiding coalition and focusing on this with our principals and assistant principals during our leadership team meetings that occur monthly. Our third priority is centered around behavior. By June of 2025, secondary schools will decrease the recidivism rate of any student with 2 or more removals as defined by ISS and OSS, whether it's short-term or long-term, and our goal was to decrease that by 8%. So essentially, we had a baseline of 677 students that were removed 2 or more times last year, whether that was 1 ISS and 1 OSS, or whether that was 2 ISSs, they were counted in this number. And we want to reduce that down to 623. We also are specifically monitoring students with disabilities to reduce their recidivism rate by 8%. So again, the number would be 184 to 169 students. Our key strategies for this will be around a focus of coherence, which means that each department, specifically security, student services, and PPS, along with building principals, will be working together to make sure that we understand some of the root causes around why we're seeing this happen and be really clear and targeted with our interventions. We're going to be tracking each campus very strategically to ask questions and offer support around those particular students. And then we also have an increase in personnel. So we have a district mental health coach team that will be working with each building mental health team to provide targeted support around increasing their ability to understand data around referrals and put in interventions in place to support them. We have 2 new assistant directors within the PPS department specifically focused on behavior. And then we also have the district and building guardians of equity that's looking around supporting this dilemma and unpacking this if it is a priority within their building to make sure that they're seeing how this could be approached from an equity lens. We also know that we're going to increase principal support, that we're going to have a secondary code of conduct action team. So that's a separate code of conduct meeting that will really be targeted around the unique needs of the secondary schools. We've talked about that before. And we'll be offering more training for TCIS, which is therapeutic crisis intervention and support training, and then also FBA and BIP, functional behavioral assessment or behavior intervention plan training. Those are the most intensive plans that we have that are pretty unique and targeted for one student versus a group of students. So we're going to be offering increased training there. So really the spirit behind everything that Mark and I shared is around cohesion and alignment, knowing that because we have very clear priorities that we're going to be focusing on the district level and it's trickling down to all of our schools, so that way we can be as supportive as possible to help us meet the objectives, not just district-wide, but within each building. Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Stenzel?
Thank you for the presentation. Always forget this thing. Yeah, right. So thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. On page 16, you had mentioned the 8% that you were looking for in priority 3 behavior. I'm just kind of curious, because I see a lot of translation in my previous life in quality. This is exactly what this is in healthcare. You're looking at metrics and trying to make an improvement through an experiment, essentially. So I'm just curious where the 8% came from. Is that a number that you all collectively gathered? Is it from the state, you know?
Good question. So usually we start with 4% just to see what that actually equates to in numbers. Because obviously with a relatively small number, that might not be the movement that we want to see. Because the idea is over the span of 5 years that we'd see 20% growth. So there is a rationale behind that. But then when we see that number is way too low, we want it to be attainable and reasonable, but also be enough that we are actually seeing the target move. So we really hope we surpass that goal, but really making sure that we're feeling the success and understanding what's working so that we can build on that in future years.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Butler?
Thank you. And Mark, you didn't lie. There were more acronyms to come after that. I wonder about the 3 priority areas, how those were arrived at. Was that state guidance? Is some of that required, or do we get complete freedom to select from a set, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we do have freedom to do that, but really it's in consultation with our district improvement team, with our leadership team, with our leadership planning team. And really what we tried to do was say, okay, well, what are some of the big rocks that we really need to focus in on? And obviously instruction is the primary thing that we are here to do in our schools. So setting academic targets and being really clear about where we want to get to with our reading, with our math, with our ELA instruction, it made it really obvious to make instruction kind of that first big bucket. And then in all the work that we did, and I shared a little bit about this at my last board presentation around professional learning communities, we really talked about, well, what's lacking in our system right now? And it was really a clear understanding of both the above the green line and below the green line, so the mechanics and all of the culture pieces you need in order to have professional learning communities function really well. Are we creating those spaces, those laboratories where teachers can come together, talk about instruction, look at student data, and really make a plan to help extend the learning for students that are not achieving? So having a PLC goal where we can be really tight about our expectations for PLCs seemed like an obvious way to go. And then that third goal was really born out of not only the conversations we've been having at our Code of Conduct Committee around behavior and student management, but also the CAP, the Compliance Assurance Plan that New York State wants us to follow. So when Christine talks about coherence and cohesion, it makes sense from our perspective to really say, well, here's what the state is asking us to do. Here's what the data is showing us. We need to make sure that our school improvement plans and our district plan align with all of that so that administrators and staff and teachers don't feel like, you know, where do I go next? If we can laser focus in on those 3 buckets and have that alignment, we think we can make movement.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Margaro?
Thank you for acknowledging the importance, all of you, for achievement. And I know that's not a change. It's been, the titles have changed, but the top 2 really are the same description from what we had last year, and I think maybe prior. And I'm glad to see that discipline is one of the top priorities. I have a couple of questions regarding the description, though, that follows. It talks about ensuring access, talks about disproportionalities with regard to students with disabilities, commitment to opportunity for all. I guess my question here is, I'm not seeing the focus on changing behaviors as much as I'm, at least in this part, as I am seeing, well, so just ensuring access. I think what I'm hearing there is we've got students who've been suspended, we've got students who've been suspended multiple times, and we want to make sure we keep them engaged, and that's really important. But what about the other students? What about the students who are showing up to school with the intention of learning? What about the teachers who are showing up with the intention of giving all of our kids an education? How do they factor into this goal?
You want to start?
So the point of the plan is to highlight areas that we want to improve upon. And so we're really focusing on the ones who are getting the repeated infractions. And so that means that we're working to support so that those don't happen again. So our focus in the plan wouldn't be on all of the other students because they're doing what they're supposed to do in those moments. And so I think what you're asking is maybe a different climate question, but that isn't the point of this targeted goal because it's focused on those students who are getting those repeat infractions. So we want to ensure access and reduce the likelihood that they're going to reoffend. So the climate, overall climate, hopefully will improve if we're doing that. And that we're not having those same behaviors repeated, but that's not necessarily the focus overall for the goal. It's focusing on the interventions and supports so that we are not seeing the same students repeat over and over again.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Farmer.
Thanks, Christine. So, under the personnel, we have assistant directors for behavior response team. You spoke a little bit about this at the retreat. It's the focus on behavior. Is that a piece connected to what Mark was talking about, and what does that look like?
Yep, so it's connected in different ways. It's connecting, they're going to be intimately involved with each of the buildings at the secondary level to understand their behavior systems and support systems to help build them up. So they'll be part of the team in a lot of ways to help build those, but then they're also going to be on the other end when it comes to if we do have to have a consequence that's imposed and have to have a manifestation meeting, for example, to see if it's connected with the student's disability. So they're going to help move that process along so that we're not waiting for that meeting to occur in order to move forward. So that is part of it, is that they're going to be pulled aside to be more responsive when something happens, but then also be a part of building the systems that are in place within the school. So it's both.
One more, excuse me. And under capacity, you have principal support.
Yep. So that is really part of what the new assistant directors are doing, is that they're helping to support them. But there's also other teams like the director of student services supports, assistant superintendent support. So really, that's part of the alignment, is that we're really understanding what's happening and that all of our perspectives are there. So just previously from last year, we never met. In my role as student services and Stacy's role in PPS, we didn't meet regularly with the director of security. So just even that alone of just making sure we're all collaborating to better understand the problem, I think is part of the intention behind some of this, so that we can better support principals with what they need.
Thank you.
Mr. Stutzel?
Thank you. On page 17, and kind of dovetailing off of what Vice President Farmer just said, on the mental health coaching for mental health teams, I'm kind of interested, and maybe you said this and I missed it, but unpacking like who is doing the coaching and for what mental health teams?
Yep. So we have what's called we just changed the name. It was formerly called CFAST, was the acronym, but now it's a district mental health coaches, district mental health coaching team. And so that's comprised of a district psychologist, a district counselor, district social workers. And so they are a team that goes to every single mental health team meeting at the building level. And so they know that their primary focus for next year is helping to support the secondary. Not that they're not going to the elementary schools still, but they're really positioning themselves as part of the team to help them set a goal that's going to help us improve in this area.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess.
Oh,
Sorry.
Mr. Butler?
Thank you. When you mentioned that ESSA is the successor to No Child Left Behind, it made me wonder your perspective on the overall helpfulness of ESSA, because a lot of what we heard, this was long before I was involved in the school board, of course, but was that No Child Left Behind wasn't particularly helpful. And I wonder if you see these things that the state is requiring of you as actually helpful in making improvements.
Yeah, I would say that it is an improvement upon, because you're right, NCLB wasn't really something that provided a lot of assistance or help or clarity in terms of school improvement. I think that in our capacity, what we have seen is that New York State is recognizing, hey, there's a lot of local control that we have to cede to the districts. They know their students, they know their community, they know what's going to work for them. So we're going to provide some funding, which is great. We're going to offer this level of coaching and support if they want to make use of that. We'll provide the guidance for what that needs to do, but the work happens within the district because they know their students, their families, and their communities best. When you get to that CSI level, then you are really looking at, of course, a little more intensive support, but you've had 4 years to really kind of right the ship. So I think New York State recognizing that local control is best, will offer some resources in terms of monetary resources and coaching, they really are taking the right perspective on it.
I also, just to add to that, I agree with everything Mark said, that they have the growth measures in there, which is also recognizing it's not just about proficiency and hitting a specific target, it's also about growth. And so I think that was a big acknowledgement from the state to see if we're improving within the subgroups too.
Thank you both.
Any other questions? Mr. Bonagario.
I'm looking at in this case, the reading achievement data on page 12. And first, I'm really glad to see that we are including all students as a targeted category because across the board, we do have a lot of room for improvement. And closing gaps is great, but when you've got that much upside for everyone, that's really important. So I appreciate seeing that there. So Mr. Stenzel asked the question about the 8%, and I know we've had the 4% target here for quite a while. We don't have year-over-year comparisons. I wonder if you can just give a little bit of sense of how that has tracked. And also, in this case, with reading, we're engaging in our core. We're still early on. I would expect that I would hope we would expect a bigger boost, but obviously we need to still get all of our staff up to speed with that. So maybe you can address both the progression, the progress that we've made, and if we should expect more than 4% going forward.
So you will have a summary for the end of year. I don't know if that's coming, but typically we give an end of year summary around the strategic plan, and this is one of the metrics around academic growth. We've been hovering around that 4% district-wide. We haven't tracked it by specific schools in this way before. And again, this is just for us to have clarity around where we need to support more intensely by building. And so that's why we are intentionally creating what we're calling a scoreboard and tracking it in this way so that we can make sure that we can see where we're progressing and where we're not, how we can learn from schools who are and what schools who aren't need. So I think that's the major difference with how we're tracking it is that we're pulling it out versus just lumping it all district-wide, because that's typically the updates that you give, which we have been hovering around the 4% for just all students for district-wide. We haven't broken it down in these subgroups previously.
So the board did get that. So that was one of the documents that or through the strategic plan update at our August retreat. The other thing that I would just sort of caution us about, and this is not to lower expectations, but we have not fully implemented our core. So the idea of just even implementation and the research behind implementation dip, which I'm not anticipating a dip. I actually think just our attention and focus on this is going to continue. We're going to continue a nice trajectory. But I also just want to make sure that we're clear while we've put so much attention on this, there's still a really large portion of people that are going to be learning this curriculum and doing this work for the first time this year.
Any other questions? Mr. Bonagario.
First, Kathy, Superintendent Groutman, thank you for that. I appreciate that very much, and I hope we have staying power, if it's not immediately bearing the fruit that we're hoping for. I also want to ask a bit about our strategies regarding our math program. In reading, we have seen a very long history of a commitment nationwide to balanced literacy and its predecessors. And we see similar attachment to current strategies in math. And I know the new California math framework goes off in a direction that really minimizes the value of standard algorithms and automaticity, memorization. So I'm wondering if we are looking at the science of learning with respect to math. There is kind of a fledgling movement, the science of math out there. Are we looking at the evidence-based strategies for bringing that to the fore? And what are we doing differently that will help?
So I think Todd Smith's probably better positioned to answer some of the science of teaching math, and we can certainly, consult with him and get you that specific information. I will say, in my experience in this district, both in my current role and as a former building administrator, that probably the most cohesive department in the entire district is the math department. The amount of collegiality and sharing that goes on within that department is really off the charts. We have been utilizing our math intervention teachers and our coaches to really push in to PLCs and department meetings to really analyze our pacing guides, our curriculum maps, and our instructional strategies that we're using with our students. But unfortunately, with my social studies background, I can't speak to automaticity or that specific level of math instruction, but we can find out from Todd and get that information to you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on to 7.01, tax surcharge refund and rebill. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, seconded by Mr. Butler. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 8.01, anticipated bids. It's written information only. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Farah?
I just had a quick question. This is regarding the second bid. This is regarding the headphones. I believe this is the last.
You're not in the right. Just anticipated bids was 8.01. Those are in 9. I know. Any questions on the anticipated bids? All right, moving on to budget revenue status report. It's written information only. Does anybody have questions on that? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Butler, seconded by Ms. Farmer. Any comments, questions, or concerns? No, Ms. Farmer.
Okay. Just a quick question on the bid for the headphones. I know that was the last remaining piece that our parents had to get as far as the school supplies. Is this something that we're now going to be doing for the parents as well? We're providing headphones for the whole entire school. Is that what I'm looking at as far as the headphones?
Yep.
Okay, so that's just off the list now for parents. We've pretty much got it all covered now. Okay, just show up. That's right. Wonderful.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda? That passes 8-0. Moving on to the DSIP and the SCEP. Can I somebody move those to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Moore, seconded by Vice President Farmer. Any comments, questions, concerns on this? Mr. Bonagario.
I did have a lot of questions regarding the various plans. And I'm just wondering if it might be possible for us to arrange before we take a vote on it, which obviously would not mean tonight, but to have a deep dive through the district comprehensive improvement plan and maybe one of the school comprehensive plans. So I think I guess what I'm asking is, I'd like to make a motion to do that, to defer the vote and have a deep dive if others might be interested in that.
Motion to table. What are you looking for as a time frame on a motion to table? Because typically it would be the next meeting. A motion to table would be the next meeting, is that?
If that's doable, I'm fine with that. And, clearly, the team would have to have time to put things together for it, but whatever would be doable.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Stencil. A motion to table is non-debatable. All those in favor of tabling?
Is there any discussion?
Nope. A motion to table, there's no discussion. And he's made the motion. We can come back depending on what happens with the motion to table, but a motion to table is a non-debatable motion, so there's no discussion on it. So we have a motion, and was there a second on the motion to table? Mr. Stencil, I believe. So with that, all those in favor of a motion to table? Those opposed? It's 4-4, motion fails. All right, back on to the DSIP and the SCEP. We're back on that. Ms. Lake, now you can go.
I wish I had gotten there before Mark did, because, we get these on Friday, and then there's so much. And I kind of became immersed in these plans, the district and then the 3 schools that are cited by the state. And it began when I just looked at it at first, and I thought, how can the priorities be backwards? And that's all I kept looking at, was that the most important thing is a safe and orderly environment. And without that, when kids feel threatened, when they feel bullied, when they feel they're in an unstable environment, it's so difficult for them to really engage cognitively. And I used to tell my interns, you have 3 days to claim a classroom. You can get it, or your students can get it. Now, if your students get it, as a first-year teacher, it's really tough to get it back. It's hard enough for a veteran teacher. But you've got 3 days to claim it. And to me, it's like to have the focus of the beginning of school on the climate, who we are and what we do here today, and how we act toward each other, is so much what it's all about. And in one of the plans, one of the schools said they would teach these behaviors. And I thought, that's what we should be doing with all of our students on the first day. And it should be the priority. And so we have a smooth running building. I stopped in to pick something up at Odyssey, and I got lost, which I normally do, but it was during the passing of classes, and all of a sudden, I felt like, oh my God, what's going on here, And the noise level was just very, very high. But, so I've been looking at things and from that standpoint, and some of the statistics, the surveys that they cite in these, the plans for Lakeshore, Pine Brook, and Olympia. So in an environment where 83% of the students say students are disrespectful to each other, to others, and 32% say that the energy in the school is positive. Only 32%. And 54% of the teachers say the school effectively handles student discipline and behavior problems. And in these schools, they're doing training for therapeutic crisis intervention, which sounds like pretty serious stuff to me. And then they want implementing a peer accountability council, focusing on peer-to-peer relationships. That's got to be tough when the majority of the kids.
Ms. Slick, I'm going to interrupt you, because I don't think what you're talking about is technically germane to the resolution that's before us.
No, I thought that was finished, and we were just talking about voting on these.
We are, but you're citing things that aren't in the plan, basically. Those aren't in the two plans before us. You're talking about survey data that isn't in the plans, I believe.
Everything is in the three
Oh.
plans that I've talked about. That's
Okay.
where I've gotten the information.
My bad.
So anyway, I think that that might be a really difficult situation for those students that are asked to do that. I think radical changes are needed in the climate of schools, and that everybody should be working on that and working on that together. It seemed like the plans tended to focus a lot on what students wanted and what they thought. So there were things that they asked for, like reading buddies and educational games and field trips like to Seabreeze, and movies and health and well-being. And sometimes students don't know the best thing for them. Or in the survey where they're asked, what is interesting to you? Are you excited about going to your class? I'm so glad that wasn't part of my evaluation. And is what you're learning important to you in your life? How many things did you learn in school that you didn't find out for 30 years were important to your life? Many of the things here, I really need to know more about, like the cognitive routines, DeFore's model of PLCs, the AVID strategies, the ARMS involving peer mentoring. And there's just so much, and I just feel like I need to know so much to really vote responsibly about it. And in terms of instructional strategies, that was the other thing. The only thing that, other than these things, I didn't know what they meant, that was an instructional strategy, and it was mentioned in 2 of the schools, was the math, and one school practiced this daily in their math problem solving, and that's try, discuss, and connect. And I just wondered how much time that took every day out of a math lesson to engage in students trying something new and discussing it and then connecting. And from the ARC, I hope this is okay, this is the last thing I have to say. Every day in the ARC core in K through 12, or K through 2, includes structured, systematic instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics decoding, and encoding. K and first include daily use of highly controlled word study notebooks for practice of new skills and review of previously taught skills at the word and sentence level, leveraging reading, encoding, and spelling. This I recognized as an instructional strategy, and the rest, I wasn't seeing that. I think it's promising that Olympia has statistics about over 4,000 referrals, and 54 students are responsible for over 40% of those. And then I think to take that into a deeper dive and look at those 54 students and what their history was in schools and where they kind of went off the rails, and then to be able to help with at-risk students in the elementary level so it doesn't happen. So those are just my thoughts, and I'm sorry to talk so long about this, but.
Thank you. Vice President Farmer?
Thank you, Mary. I think you're talking about rituals and routines for the first few days, and I could talk to, Kathy, could you speak to that a little bit? Rituals and routines in the buildings?
I mean,
It's
frankly,
not germane to the resolution at this point. I mean,
What's
that's
happening?
not germane to the resolution. I mean, the resolution is the school improvement plans, or the DSIP and the SCEP. It's really not germane talking about rituals and routines. That's not part of these plans. I mean, we're getting off into the weeds a little bit when it comes to these plans.
Well, I would add, though, that some of the things are classroom routines. I would also say, Mary mentioned probably 7 different programs that would, while you say deep dive, would take me years to teach you to understand AVID, every single program that's mentioned in all of these plans. And again, that is because it was designed by teachers and school improvement teams and district improvement teams. So I think this is really getting at a lot of what we talked about in terms of our roles versus the school roles versus, board member roles. And I don't know, I honestly can't say feasibly how on earth I could plan something, when it would happen, and how long it would take for me to go into a deep dive of all the things that are listed in there. And I'm not sure necessarily how necessary that is. And some of the things in there are clearly identified by the state. So some of the survey data is required by the state in terms of building in and bringing in perception data. And I also think it's really important, while we can share a question, there's always context behind that, how it was given, how it was scored, and all of the pieces that not everybody understands. So I guess I just try to think about the most helpful thing is for our teams to be engaged in this work. If there are key questions and things that you think would be helpful in terms of feedback, certainly those are things we could consider, but there's a group of people that have worked really hard on designing this plan, that have been working on looking at multiple data sources over months with the key people in that school that came up with that plan. So to think that as a board, we're gonna change it or table it and study it, I mean, I guess I don't know to what end, and then do they just not stop working on it starting in September, or do we get them started and change it? Just think it's leaving the conversation for me in a really uncomfortable space in terms of where then I would go in terms of supporting people.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Butler?
I guess I would say that, first of all, a couple of things. We have 3 priorities. I don't think it's one's the first priority,
Correct.
2 is the
Good
second priority, and 3 is the third priority. So they are our 3 jointly important priorities, right? Okay.
Can I also say, everything that a school does is not in this plan either. So there may be a huge body of work that's going on related to culture and climate, which every school has a team and work that they're doing that's not noted in that, because they might be just identifying some key things related to those priorities.
And I guess the other thing I would say about our role as a board, I feel like our role is to look at what the work that the staff has done and say, as Kathy said, we have highly trained individuals who have put this together. It's their life's work that we're looking at here. And they've established some targets and some goals, and it's our job as the board to monitor our progress against those goals. And if they're not meeting those goals, then maybe we have to do a deep dive into, okay, what are you going to do different then? Because what you said you thought was going to work didn't work. So tell us more about what you think is going to work better next time. And that feels to me like that's squarely within our role as a board, that kind of oversight and accountability. To get into, you're going to do this, not that. I don't think you should do it this way. I think you should do it that way. Feels to me like it crosses a line where we're getting into the operation of the district, and that's not our role, in my opinion. I think, not just in my opinion, I think it's something we've been told.
Mr. Bonnegorio?
My proposal that we have a deep dive was exactly for that reason, because I do think there are some issues on the table regarding achievement, regarding behavior, that have been longstanding issues. On some, we're making good progress, on others, not as good. So that was my rationale for asking for a deferral of the vote and in a deeper dive. realizing that you can't teach us everything that there is in the process of trying to educate our kids. That's the rationale that I presented.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, in support of this resolution, show of hands. The resolution to adopt the SCIF and the SCIF. Yeah, that's the resolution we're on. All those in favor? Those opposed? Fails. All right, moving on to board goals. 12.01. Can I someone move the board goals to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, seconded by Vice President Farmer. Comments, questions, concerns on the board goals? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, so the board goals pass 8-0. All right, moving on to comments. Student board member comments. Mr. Alvarez, you're up. Welcome.
Thank you. So on Thursday, August 28th, TSAC, also known as the Student Advisory Council, had a retreat between current and new upcoming students. These group of students are 11th and 12th graders across Greece Central School District and were handpicked by their school building admin. They are students who are willing to do greater things in their community and be greater leaders. We, as I am also a part of this group, are students who are willing to learn ways to enhance our leadership skills, whether it's through advocacy, communication, and as well as strategic thinking. In this retreat, we were able to enjoy each other's presence, learn about one another, and hear about some of the work that we'll be getting into this school year, such as conducting focus groups, figuring out ways conducting focus groups to figure out ways that students would like to change in their school community, planning the second annual Greece to Change Summit, and as well as helping with the HBCU Equity Tour in March. This part of the meeting was interesting because not only did it allow us to know about different plans that we will be attentive to, but it gave us an idea of who were the key role adults who are willing to support us in any way possible, and as well as introducing the new chair of the TSAC to Sarah Hunter and myself as a student board member. And then the second part of this retreat was also about Leader in Me training, which was by Stephen Covey, presented by Ms. Quinn, and as well as Ms. Baker. And this training was not only informative, but it was also fun because even though it was 7 to 8 hours, we were also allowed to speak with one another about skills that we are ready to use in the future. And then this morning, I also had an opportunity to speak to the Greece Central School District staff. I spoke about not only enabling joy in the classroom and workspaces, but as well as ensuring that we realize that we're human beings. And too often, I think that we're always focusing on what we're supposed to be and what greater person we're supposed to be. But I think that as well as me speaking this morning, I also have a shadowing opportunity as a superintendent tomorrow for Greece schools. And I feel like that is an opportunity that is not only incredible, but is really opportunity that I think other students should be able to get as well. They don't have to be superintendent, but they could also be nurses, they can be doctors, they could be next astronauts. But I think this retreat for TSAC definitely enhanced that, and it definitely gave us an opportunity to do greater things in our community. And
Thank you,
that is all.
Mr. Alvarez. Board member comments. Board member Stencil.
Thank you. I first just wanted to thank pretty much all the district staff. I'm going to probably butcher this, but the teachers, the assistants, the bus staff, the bus monitors, food services, which I have a relative in there, and I feel like they never get a good plug, but I want to give them one. The security, the facilities, and everyone else that I probably missed, including the cabinet here and the leadership that all came together to make what's going to happen tomorrow and the rest of this week possible. So a big kudos to all of you, because I know it's a huge undertaking and you don't get enough credit for things like that. So here's to hoping for a successful tomorrow as we do our kickoff for our students. The second thing, and I'll end with this, You know, before I got elected to this position, I used to come up to the microphone every month and petition this board to come meet with me for a series of town halls. The reason for that was not to annoy you or to put you in an awkward spot, but because I believed in transparency, I believed in parent voice and building relationships with your community and allowing parents who are terrified to come to that microphone for their 3 minutes to have a private place where they could speak and ask questions and really try to understand how the board thinks, operates, and so on. That being said, I am going to extend the same invite now that I'm on this board. I promised parents this, that I would continue, and I'm going to. I'd like 3 other board members, and hopefully ones that have never come and joined me on the town hall front, to come with me. I know we can't have more than 4. If we go over that, then we break the sunshine law, so I don't want to do that. But I really want open discussions. And I mean, I would love it if this board would just vote on that and have that as a special meeting here to talk to folks, but I know that probably won't happen, so I'll do it on my own. And I really want 3 other board members. I know you'll be there, Terry. But I'm just saying, like, I want 3 other people to come join me, and even if we get 1 parent, I don't care. That's 1 person we can educate on what we do, what we don't do, and really try to answer questions, hear concerns, but also our wins. What are we doing well? What can we bring back here and talk about how we're doing, you know? And I think that makes us a better elected official, to really sit there and listen to our constituency. So with that said, best of luck for everyone tomorrow. Thank you.
Ms. Moore?
First of all, I want to thank our community schools groups. They've done amazing back-to-school events at schools, and it's so exciting to see the pictures of young ones walking through their school, seeing the classroom. I really appreciate that. There's a lot of anxiety going on in many homes tonight. And the fact that you got to walk through your school and get your locker or anything important like that, I'm thankful to community schools. Great job. Had a sneak peek through Patty Hill, and boy, they've done a lot of work there, and finally have a gymnasium and new bathrooms. And again, thanks to the taxpayers who support those kind of groups. You know, the students will actually have a cafeteria and don't have to eat in the classroom anymore, so that's kind of fun for there. And finally, I want to remind everybody about fall sports. Any field for the next few weeks is going to be with lots of students participating in sports, and they'd love to have people in the audience cheering for them. So check those out, their schedules online, and let's support all our athletes. Good luck to everybody tomorrow.
Mr. Butler?
Thank you. I wanted to highlight the August graduation, which was my first time attending that this year, and a number of the board colleagues were there as well. And that's just such a great experience, and you think about how hard those students have worked in order to get across the stage in August. And so just congratulations to those students and families for making it there and having a great turnout. I want to say thanks for a great experience at the opening day today. That was also my first time at that, and I really appreciated Kathy's remarks on the Empower theme that they're establishing this year in the district, and I hope we can all support that. I appreciated Board President McCabe's comments as well very much, and it was just, you could feel the excitement in that room today, and so many folks, and I appreciated Silas's recognition of how many people there were in the room when he first stepped up to the microphone, but you did a great job too, Silas. And the last thing I'll say is watch out for school buses. It's a new thing on the road for us. We got to get used to again, and make sure that we are careful when we're driving as kids are crossing and getting used to that routine as well. So good luck tomorrow, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Margaro?
I also want to just extend my best wishes to all of our students, our teachers, our bus drivers, all the staff, folks here in the administration, for a great year, a lot of learning, a lot of growing, and safety. So good luck to all.
All right. I'm up. I'm going to start with, Oh, yeah, you have to raise your hand if you want to speak. You're the last one before me, but I wasn't sure.
Typically, you would call the vice president.
If she has comments, but usually she tells me, but we're not sitting next to each other. Okay, you're up.
So opening day, the students, the choruses were absolutely incredible, moving, gorgeous. Silas, the speech that you gave, it brings joy to our hearts to see our children do what they did. It was wonderful. Wonderful day to start wonderful way to start the day. I have lost my mother and sister in the past year, and I think that I'm moving out of denial, and I'm beginning to move into the grieving, the sadness piece, and it was so beautiful to experience that today with the kids. I'd also like to speak about the vice president position and how I felt that it was a responsibility to put my name in to run for this position. We heard Sean speak this morning about how this will be his last year as president. He holds 17 years worth of incredible knowledge, and I hope that we will be able to do some collaborating together. I want to thank Terry for all the fantastic, I don't even know how you do everything you do. You're always here, you're always there, and I appreciate that. I know Sean also talked about his mentors. I would love to reach out to you and hope that you will would do that for me, the mentor piece of it. So as I said, this was a responsibility. As our superintendent moves on and our board president moves on and we have our vice president who's up for reelection and I have 3 years in front of me, it seemed to make sense that this would be a good time to take on this responsibility. And school, 24, 25, that's incredible that we are moving into this new year. We have all kinds of wonderful things happening. I had to take my grandson to school this morning to drop off his materials and meet his teacher. And wow, he walked through the door and he just lit up. So we know that our kids are really looking forward to being here tomorrow. And we have a great staff and a great possibility in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Farmer. My comments. First, I want to apologize to the staffs at Pine Brook, Lakeshore, and Olympia, and to the cabinet and to all the other people that have put a tremendous amount of hours and work into the DSEP and the SCEP plans that came before the Board of Education tonight. I want to acknowledge your hard work. I want to apologize on behalf of myself that the board didn't adopt those. I think it was a bad decision of the Board of Education. It's one of those things that we're stepping into an operational role that we shouldn't be stepping into. It's more of an oversight role, like my colleague, Mr. Butler, so eloquently said. And I want to apologize to those staffs for the amount of work they put in over the summer, at the end of last school year, the cabinet, Mark and Christine, all the other cabinet members, Dr. Payne, Dr. Zaffitz, Dr. Clickio, Deputy Superintendent Smalling, Superintendent Groutman. It was, this is probably one of my most disappointing votes in the Board of Education when we don't support our people in this district and the work they do. And when a Board of Education feels they can do the job better and they can do things differently, it would be like somebody telling me how to put out a fire. If Mark Fleming told me how to put out a fire, I would laugh at him. I had the experience of 29 years in the fire service. I'm disappointed in what the Board of Education did tonight. Opening day today was tremendous. I mean, I thought my speech was better than yours, Silas, but you're the only one that got the standing ovation. So, I mean, it was pretty impressive, I'm not going to lie, and it was a really good speech. And I want to welcome you to the Board of Education and look forward to working with you and having you at our meetings all year. So I'm excited about that. And I do think opening day today, it was my 17th year of the last 11 speaking at opening day, and it was the biggest crowd we've ever had. It was an amazing morning, and it gives me so much pleasure and excitement as we roll into the school year and the start of school tomorrow. And just the amount of work that goes into tomorrow, like Mr. Stencil said, it's there's a lot of work that goes into tomorrow and this whole school year by a lot of people, a lot of hours, a lot of sleepless nights, and we're here. I mean, game day's tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, everyone has a great start of school. Hopefully, have a great school year. And with that, I'm gonna finish. It is game week. I said it this morning. Go Bills.
Bill.
Superintendent Groutman.
So I have a few slides that I just wanted to talk a little bit about. So rather than write down some comments, I asked for some pictures to be shared with me. So forgive me because this is fairly primitive, but wanted to just highlight the work that has gone into welcoming families. So I say that because we talk about listening, we talk about wanting to hear from families, we want to hold and host events, and I appreciate all of that, and that is also why we've done so much in terms of extending to our community and bringing them into our schools, so that they feel comfortable, so that they build relationships, and so that they actually share with us what's on their mind. So you're going to see here lots of different ways that we've done this. So this is just some of the kids over at Athena. You'll see coming in, checking their schedules, looking at lockers, walking the halls, getting comfortable, following schedules, all those things. So you'll see many of our schools represented. This is a picture from our Back to School Bash, and I want to just point out, we had over 2,000 people at this bash. So when you talk about talking to families, I had 4 distinct conversations where I sat down, once in the hot cafeteria, and several times outside under a tree with families to find out what was on their mind so that they could talk about what they might be frustrated with, what they were happy about. You're going to see in these pictures, look at the amount of people around. This is all the Back to School Bash. The one board member that was there was Mr. Silas Alvarez representing, so that was really awesome because he too was wandering. He was not just there for the free snow cone or bomb pop. He actually was with, he had one buddy with him that I saw, but was wandering and talking and being present, so I really appreciated that. But you'll see at these events, this isn't just our community schools staff. These are our staff members from all over the district. Our teachers are working, there's community schools. We have a ton of parent volunteers who are also helping. So you see some of these are actually just some welcome events at the schools that teachers have had. Teachers super happy, greeting kids, and also getting to know families. Going through expectations, so when we're talking about developing a climate and culture in the school, part of these events is also sharing with them how you move through hallways. What are the rules? What do we know about this school? How do we sort of welcome you so that you know where to go if you have questions? That's all climate and culture work. Sorry, that's a repeat. And I'm not going to talk through all of them, but also, this one just, he's a rule in the school. We have sports started, like was mentioned. The only picture I really got was a good football shot, but there'll be plenty more starting this weekend. This was just a way that they kept the kids hydrated. And then a ton of professional learning that was happening right until the very last. So this was like one of the last weeks of summer that we had teams in that were doing work related to ARCOR, that were doing work related to science, that were doing work related to new curriculums that had been worked on over the summer. And then that idea of climate and culture, this idea of team building. So what you see here is a lot of the adults also were working on making sure that they have a positive climate to work in. This is the HR department on their retreat. Connecting with some kids. Funny shirts. And then noting our facilities. So as Terry mentioned, this is Patty Hill's cafeteria. They got a beautiful gym cafeteria, but this picture sums it up in terms of some of the capital work that got done, taking out carpets and beautiful floors. But if you walk around our buildings, that's what they look like right now. Our building custodians are so proud, but they are also so tired because they've done that in record amount of time because we had so much summer programming going on. So it really limits the time that they can work and get to everything in the schools. So they're really in a pinch at the end of the summer. And lastly, this is just a picture with one of our amazing bus drivers and some kids. But I just share those pictures because I think it's a testament to the work that we've done to build culture and climate, to open doors, to also make sure that we're encouraging conversation, communication, and feedback from our families. So, and I would also just want to give final shout out to Silas, because on top of being at the on top of being at the back to school bash, he's been very busy. He supported us this morning at the opening day ceremony. He was a huge part of the retreat that we held and helped with a great deal of facilitation on that day. So this is all within a week. Tomorrow morning, he has an early date with me at 6 a.m. So he will be up early. Thank you, Luva, for driving. And it's just, it's a commitment, but I've appreciated his willingness to jump in, ask questions. He answers emails quicker than anybody on staff. And I know he's going to be here bright and early, ready to walk with me tomorrow. So thanks so much for your work. And everyone, I'm really excited for an amazing school year. It's going to be a great, great first day tomorrow. Thanks for all the work.
Motion to adjourn?
Moved by Board Member Moore, second. Mr. Stetzel, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.